So I just finished Ascendance of the Bookworm Season 2. I can't remember if I did a video on a review for it. I feel like I at least did a first impressions video. I can't remember. I have to go back and look. Again, too lazy to look. So basically I'll be briefly going over kind of what happened in the first season. If you don't want any spoilers, because whether I try to or not, I do tend to spoil some things, whether little things or big things, I will be discussing. This is more like a discussion video or like, I don't know, a thoughts video or something like that, rather than like a review. But, yeah, so I'll just kind of briefly go over the first season, and then I'll get more into detail about what I thought about the second season and what happened, you know, which one I liked more, just kind of anything I can really think of to add. So, basically, if you don't know, it's on Crunchyroll. It's called Ascendance of a Bookworm. I just call it Bookworm. The main character is mine in the first season. She is... Why are you whining? You're fine. It's like... I don't know. A feature of my videos to hear my dog whine for... I don't know what the reason is. It's not hot in my room for once. She has water. She's fine. She ate not that long ago. She was just out. Anyway. So, the main character is mine in Ascendance of the Worm, and she kind of wakes up in a I think she's like 5 or 6 at the time, in like 5-6-year-old's body, and then she doesn't really understand how she got there or why. We do learn later on that, because initially she and I guess us are led to believe that it's kind of just briefly touched. Like I said, she doesn't understand what's going on. She doesn't really dwell on it too much. She just knows that if this isn't my body, where the fuck am I? Who the fuck are these people? Basically, that's it. And we don't know much about her in her previous life in the first season, just that her name was Motosu Urano, which was mentioned like once. And then I'm assuming she was like somewhere between like maybe 15, 16, 17, or early 20s. I'm more convinced it's like maybe 15 to 17 though. I don't think they actually say in the anime. I don't remember. They do the second season. Ferdinand says she was an adult, but like this is a different world, and like I'm assuming the ages are different there too. Like in a lot of anime where they have like a magical kingdom or whatever, they tend to be like, oh, you're a man or a woman or adult or whatever at age 15. Like in Wise Man's Grandchild, he's 15. Technically, you're an adult there. So I wonder if it's like that, or was she like actually an adult? I don't know. But basically, like the title, she's obsessed with books. She kind of just wakes up there in a world without books and decides, well, if they aren't there, I'm going to fucking make them. And then that's basically the first season, is her just kind of doing shit. Like, it's a lot of world building. Where, it does kind of get world building later on, but, it's a selfish drive. It's not like, I'm going to save the world and the god has summoned me. Like, she doesn't know why. There was no mythical, magical meaning of the gods like, you need to save the world. There was none of that shit. She just kind of woke up there and went, what the fuck is this? Okay, where are the books? There are no books. What the fuck? And she finds out they're only for nobility and they're very expensive, and so she's like, fuck it, I'll just make my own. And then just the rest of the first season is her just kind of finding ways to like make her own books. So she has to find a way to make paper, so she tries to do like clay tablets and these kind of different methods that she knows. And basically she kind of read like any type of book, so it's kind of her reinventing things in this world from the knowledge she had in her past life. So basically it's the equivalent of, it's not like she experienced how these things were actually fucking created, because obviously they were already created before she was even born in that world, right? Like, so it'd be like, what's a good example? Oh, like she wants to make books, so she tries, like I said, clay tablets, and she knows this because she read books about, like, what was it, the ancient Mesopotamians or some fucking thing like that. And then she tries her hand from the knowledge she got from books to recreate stuff in this world for her convenience. Like, it's not magically in her head because she's a fucking genius or anything. So, like, the very first thing she invents is shampoo. And, I don't know why I said it like that, shampoo. But yeah, she, like, invents shampoo because she doesn't like the way her hair feels all greasy and stuff. Because she's born as, I'm assuming it's either a commoner or a peasant, so, like, the lower side of the town. And by the way, you don't get a whole lot of information about things. Like, in the first season, it's kind of just basically her life and her family and kind of how things, it's mainly centered around her rather than, like, the entire city or the entire world and the cosmic forces. It's none of that shit. It's just, like, this girl just inventing shit for herself, really, and then she kind of ends up selling that shit, and that kind of affects other things, and it's just kind of like a chain reaction. But yeah, it's just her trying to complete a book, and then we also get to meet Lutz, who is kind of like a childhood friend, and then we have her sister Turi, her mom, I don't remember her name, I want to say it's like Tulsa, but I think that's wrong, and we have her dad, I think his name is Gunther, it's just called mom and dad, and Turi. Turi's about a year older than her, give or take, and so she's like 6 or 7, no, she's 7, I think. And you have like a baptism at age 7, you go to the church, and you take on apprentice work. People usually follow in their parents' footsteps, obviously, and their mom does, she's a seamstress. So Turi becomes an apprentice seamstress, and then her dad is a soldier or captain at like a gate or something, so it's kind of like a small soldier thing he's in charge of. And then she meets Otto, who also works with her dad, and then Otto gets her to meet Mrs. Karina, who is like his wife, and Benno's sister, and we also get Benno. And we get connected to Benno or mine gets connected to him through Otto. And he's like his brother-in-law, and he is a merchant, and that's how she ends up selling things and kind of working for the Gilberta company. So we get them, and then kind of like some other characters, but like they're kind of like the most part. And then by the end of season 1, we get into mine joining the church, and we get the confrontation and a little bit more, like just the last episode or so of I think it is, yeah, of like her. Okay, basically, in this world, there's magic, and this thing called a devouring, no one knows what the fuck it is, really. You just know that if you have it, you're not going to live long. You're going to die very quickly. And you suffer. And you find out was kind of hinted, so it's not super secret to you. You can kind of, if you're paying attention, you're like, okay, it's probably something like this. And yeah, spoiler, it is basically just an abundance of magic and commoners, and they don't know how to utilize it. And at one point, they kind of describe it as like a glass being overly filled, and eventually it's going to go over. As how that happens. And nobility have high magic, and they know actually how to use it, so they know what the fuck the devouring is. Benno does know what it is. We don't know why he knows what it is, but he kind of says maybe she has a devouring. And then we also get the guild master and his granddaughter, and or he's like the merchant guild master or something. So him and Benno are kind of like rivals. Like he has a bigger company, and Benno has his own company he runs. And then you have the granddaughter, who also we find out has the devouring, and she kind of tells mine everything she knows about it, and then in order to like fix it, you can't heal it. You kind of have to just kind of take it. You like control it bit by bit. You have to get magical items that absorb it from your body so you don't die. But they're only the nobility have magic items, and the only ones that they manage to get from them are very expensive, and they're like the broken, the shoddy, useless ones that just kind of barely work, so they break, and they're a lot of money. And then basically, in order to survive the devouring, you have to have these items, and the only way to get them is either you have to have a real lot of money, or you have to have connections with the nobility and make a deal with them. So we find out that this granddaughter, I can't remember her name, but she becomes Mine's kind of like a friend, like potential business rival, partner type of thing. Well, not quite rival. That she made a deal to become like the, was it concubine or mistress or something like that of some noble, and that's why she has access to that kind of thing. So when she reaches age, she'll go and marry, or the fuck the religion is that way. And Mine decides that she would rather die with her family than be sold off by some noble and live. And then we end up with the church, and she finds out that they need a lot of money and they need a lot of mana. And because of all her ideas, they're making quite a bit of money. And they have a library, she finds out, so she wants to join the priestesshood or whatever. She becomes an apprentice priestess. Sorry, stumbling over my words like always. And she starts checking to see how long I was running on, because my video cuts out. Sometimes it'll split itself into two pieces for whatever reason, and then it'll be like a 30-minute long thing, and then like a 2-minute long other video of the second half, which just irritates me. So I'm trying to see what time I'm at, see how what I gotta go through. Okay, and so she gets along. She goes to her baptism, and at age 7, her and Lutz go to the baptism, and she finds out they have books. She kind of ends up fainting, which happens a lot. She does faint a lot. She's very weak and very short for her age, and it's because of the devouring. And so, like, she has to be carried around pretty much the entire first season. She doesn't get carried around as much in the second season, but she still has to get carried around. She still faints, just not as much, because now she has, like, a way to kind of deal with things. So getting more into that, yeah, like, she goes to the baptism or whatever. You have to go to the church to do this, and it's just the kids go. The parents don't go, and they, I guess they get their citizenship there, whatever the fuck it is. And she faints from laughing. And, because how there's a pose people make to, like, pray or whatever, well, they do this thing, and it's very funny, and I guess she says it's the Glico Running Man pose is what they're doing, and so she's laughing her ass off. No one really understands why, because they can't really tell she's laughing, she's just kind of hunched over, and she kind of, like, I guess passes out from laughing too hard, and because of how she and her mom, like, remade her sister Turi's dress. So, her sister Turi's dress for her baptism, whatever the fuck, got passed down to her, and they kind of just decorated it differently, like, her own, like, taking hand-me-downs and kind of just doing your own style to it, like her and her mom did. And I guess they mistook her for, like, a rich girl. So they put her in this room, and she tries to get her, she's like, okay, I'm going to get out of here, and tries to get back to, like, where she was before, and she kind of gets lost and ends up finding a library and just loses her mind. She's like, oh my god, there's a fucking library. Because there are no libraries in this world. Like, I don't think that actually really... No, like, there are, but it's like the nobles have them, so there's no real concept. By the way, the vast majority of peasants and the common people don't know how to read. Mine does know how... She does learn how to read, and she learns very quickly, and she teaches other people later on. But, so it's kind of like very simple numbers or just pictures. There's no way they would buy books because they can't read anyway. It'd be pointless. Except, like, the nobility, they know how to fucking read and everything. And, like, her dad knows how because he's a soldier, and obviously he needs to see, like, who's coming and going through the gate. So they have to have, like, paperwork and that kind of thing. So he knows how, and Otto knows how. Because Otto used to be a merchant, and that's obviously why he knows fucking Benno, I'm guessing. By the way, like, Benno's well off. Like, he's not a noble, but he's doing well. He's making money. And so his sisters also, like, him and Benno and his sister all live together, because I guess he didn't want to let his sister go. Like, I guess he's, like, a very protective big brother or something, because they kind of, like, briefly touch on it, so I'm assuming that's probably what they meant, rather than, like, a sister complex or anything. Like, no, he probably just really cared about his sister and was worried about her and didn't kind of want to send her off on her own, that kind of thing. Like, maybe they're really close, I don't know. You don't really see them ever together, which is weird. Like, you do see Karina a few times, but, like, other than that, you don't see much of her, or her brother and her interacting. But you do see a lot of them. You see a little less of him in the next season, I think. Or just about, I do think you see a little bit less of him. Anyway, so yeah, she runs into this library and decides she wants to join the church. She can have access to the books, and it's kind of very obvious that's why she wants to be there. And I think she actually outright says, oh, no, because you have a library. And they're like, okay. And so she's like, they kind of hint, okay, you need to like kind of give an offering, like some money, and then we can kind of set you, that kind of thing. So they still think she's a rich girl, despite they don't know if she's a peasant. And then they find out, and then the high priest, who was once being somewhat nice to her, being like, okay, yeah, you can, loses his shit, because he's like, ugh, commoner, bleh. And he's an asshole to her, and he tries to force her to come to the church because they desperately need mana and money, and mine is, well, she's been selling things, so she has quite a bit of money, and she has quite a bit of mana, and they desperately need it, so they try and force her. That doesn't end well. So one of my favorite scenes is, so he like sends these gray robes. The gray robes are essentially like orphans or like lesser people. They don't really have a say. They have to do a lot of manual labor. They're treated like trash. And I think they get slightly better treatment than the orphans. And oh god, you learn about that shit in the second season. Them, you don't really learn anything about them in the first season. They're just kind of there for a second as like the thugs trying to beat them up because they've been ordered to. And of course they get their shit handed to them because this guy's a fucking soldier and they're just regular ass people that just clean the church all day and do whatever the fuck they ask them to there. And then like the numbers on the side, and the high priest is like, we're gonna take her, and how dare you defy a noble, and you'll die, or will be executed, you'll die a dog's death. And mine gets pissed off, and her mana activates, and she almost squashes this motherfucker like a grape. And it is one of my favorite scenes. Is just her in a very calm voice with like an echo attached to it to show like there's like a power on her. It's like, I don't fucking. It's hard to explain, but it's cool to me. I'm easily impressed. And so it's like her and her talking very somewhat calmly despite the situation. Where she's like, that's enough of that. And she's the high priest isn't talking anymore because he's essentially having his throat crushed. Like he kind of floats up for a second. She's not touching him or anything. It's like some weird mystical power. I don't fucking know. And like he's turning purple at some point, which is why I say grape rather than like popping like a pimple or anything, because also it's gross to me. I know that's really ironic considered. But anyway, so yeah, she kind of almost kills him, and you can't actually find that clip on YouTube. You can find it. I found it. It's one of my favorite scenes. And then you have the head priest, not to be mistaken for the high priest. High priest, asshole. Head priest, we do end up liking him later. If you don't know, the high priest is the asshole in the white and gold robes with the white beard and like a bald head. And the head priest is, he's got like mid-length blue hair, blue robes with golden trim. And I guess he works under, so I guess it would be like orphans, gray robes, apprentice priestesses, blue robes, head priest, high priest. I'm assuming that's what like the fucking hierarchy is. You can't see what I'm doing. Anyway. Would you lay down? You're okay. And so yeah, they managed to work out a deal that she'll be treated almost with the same. Nay, stop. Because she can't do any labor. They're basically, when she says she goes home and she says I want to join the church, they're completely against it because they don't treat people well there. They do not. They pretty much work you to death. There's a lot of prejudice there. And so they're greatly against it, and she manages to convince her family, and they go there to try and talk to get like somewhat decent treatment for her. Like she needs to stay home because obviously she has a devouring, she gets sick very easily, she's very weak, she needs to be home and constantly taken care of. And because she's weak, she can't do any of the chores that the others do. Like it's not just her like, I'm not going to do this. Like no, she physically cannot. It would literally kill her. So they try and like negotiate to get her slightly better treatment. So they know at least she's okay, she can stay home. Like basically all they really want from her is like, we'll give you like money and she'll have access to the library and stuff and perform her duties or whatever, and in return she gets to stay home with us, And so was it have access to libraries, stay home with them so she can be taken care of, and to be exempt from any physical duties, I guess. So basically something like that. Kind of briefly mentions it. And after the whole almost killing the high priest thing, he passes out, and so now the head priest has to deal with all this. He agrees to the conditions, and the conditions are that she will provide mana and money, and she will also do the duties, like the rituals. Not any of the physical labor, but she will do the rituals. She will be exempt from the physical labor, and she will have treatment to almost that of the blue robes. So almost that nobility. And then that's kind of the end. And then you get 2 OVAs, which is, I guess, episode 14.5 and 14.5 part 2. I don't think you need to watch those, but I would anyway, because if you like the show, you're going to want to watch those episodes anyway. And they kind of, basically is the head priest kind of checking out mine by having, like, someone go survey the, like, poor district, whatever the fuck it's called, to check up on her, to see, like, okay, what is she all about? What information can you get off her? That kind of thing. Just, check her out before she becomes part of the church. And then the second season, which I personally liked better than the first season, we get into territory we learn about the church, and it's basically mostly the church, and we also learn about nobility. Not everything we do start to learn about the nobility. And basically, the church is full of people, the blue robes is what I'm talking about, who I guess are nobility, but are not. You find out later on in the second half of the season, that it's briefly mentioned that to be a noble, you have to go to and pass an academy or something. It's like the Royal Academy, something fucking like that. I can't remember. Was it like Royal Academy or Nobles Academy? You have to fucking thing you get a pass to be like an official noble, so they're kind of just like the cast-offs. I'm assuming there are some like exceptions. Like, I would be very surprised if Ferdinand, which you learn that's the head priest, blue hair's name is Ferdinand, and that he's actually part of the knighthood, who you also get into in this season at the last few episodes. So, Mine joins the church. She gets, she's told her duty. She donates mana, which keeps her from dying from the devouring, and also because they need mana in order to perform rituals like healing the earth after Trombe suck up all the magic energy and kill everything, kind of shit like that. They briefly really touch on it. And we also get, it's basically, it's mostly the church, and then like a lot of the first season is mine at home or in her thing, just like around her neighborhood, and then the second season is mostly the church. Small moments where she'll go to like a Gilberta company, which there's a lot more of that in the first season, or she'll the first scene is like the Gilberta, or her place, like her neighborhood, the Gilberta company, the forest, and then like the church one time, like 1 or 2 times, and she does visit Karina and Benno once, I think. And then second season, it's the vast majority of it is the church and a few other places, but the vast majority she's at the church. And so yeah, she donates her mana, which keeps her from dying from the devouring, and they need mana for rituals and that kind of stuff. And then also she provides them funds from the Gilberta company. Like she'll sell her ideas and get like a piece of the profit from stuff she sells, I'm assuming. So that some of the money goes to the church to kind of pay for her going in there, and she gets to live with her family still, and she ends up getting 3 more retainers. They're the Grey Robes. They take care of her. So you have Fran, who is the eldest. He's quite clearly like an adult or an almost adult. Like, I'm assuming he's at the very least 17, 18. And he kind of carries her around. He used to work for the head priest, so he's got seal of approval. And then you have 2 other younger ones, which are about mine's age, give or take. One is, I want to say his name is Gil, but I think that's wrong. Fuck, it starts with a G, I think. And he's kind of rambunctious. He's not too keen on this little kid just bossing him around. And then you have this other girl, I can't remember her name, who's red hair, who quite clearly prefers the high priest, and she kind of works for him. And she's there essentially to spy on mine, which she doesn't quite get, because she kind of just like, fuck it, well, if you don't want me here, whatever, and goes over there, and then he gets mad at her because she's spending time with him rather than her getting fucking information online. Anyway, and she kind of wins them over later on after, like, she kind of figures out why he, like, Fran kind of treats her the best of the three at first. The others do treat her better later. But, she kind of has to win them over on certain things, and then she gets 2 more retainers, 2 other girls, and then, one teaches her music, and then, one, well, that was also the head person is the music, the girl teach her music and, like, Ladylike Customs or whatever. Ladylike Customs, there you go. And then you have, Wilma, I think her name is, and she's the one that mine wanted because she wants to make books, so she needs an artist, and Wilma's good at drawing. And then mine later learns about the orphanage and how horribly they're treated, and she decides to become orphanage director, which is a whole thing. And because they're literally dying, they're barely fed, and the way things go is the Grey Robes get their food. They get is like was it the Grey Robes? No, I think it's the orphanage, and I think the Grey Robes is like a slight upgrade. No one really cares about the orphanage. Basically, they're literally locked in a fucking cellar all day. They're barely fed anything, if at all, and a lot of them are dying down there. And mine finds this out to her fucking horror, and she finds out that these offerings of the gods is what the nobility don't finish eating, and that gets passed down to the Grey Robes, and then whatever's left goes to the orphanage. So that's not a lot. And with the nobility, the Blue Robes dwindling, that's even less. So they're literally dying down there. They're fucking sticks and bones. Their eyes are pretty much dead, and she uses what she can of her funds to kind of become orphanage director, which she gets approval from the head priest. And she starts taking care of them, and then she teaches them, like, how to read and write, and, like, they get food now, and they get clothing, and then in turn they kind of help her, like, go gather sticks in the forest to make her paper for her books, and, you know, kind of like little things like that. And so there's a lot of, like, in the first show, it's a lot of mine just kind of being selfish and dealing with things there and kind of learning to love her family. And in the second season, it's she's a lot less selfish. Like, she's still selfish, but she's a lot less selfish in this one. And I think it's a lot better than the first one. Don't get me wrong, the first one's good, but, like, I think things are a lot more fun and interesting in every episode in the second season, but that's just for me personally. I watched the OVAs, like I said, that's 14.5, 14.5 part 2. You don't need to watch them, but I would. But it's just, I love this show. It's fucking fantastic. If you want even more, like, there's a couple videos, I want to say a bunch of, no, there's like 3 or 4 or something, on Mother's Basement, where he goes into, like, the world building and how it's, like, one of his favorite anime, and I really like that review. So I love it. And anyway, going on that, we get close to the Ferdinand, we learn about the knights. Mine finishes up by kind of impressing the knights and almost getting her eyes gouged out by one. Who, you know, he's going to start shit by that. You know, just characters have that obnoxious, leery look on their face, and you're just like, oh, fuck, this guy's going to be an asshole. And sure enough, and she kind of upstages him in the end, which is nice. And then, well, the first season I forgot to leave out is she does tell Lutz kind of a little bit about how, okay, I'm mine, but I'm not mine, and a little bit about that, how she's from a different world or whatever. I don't remember exactly what she says, but basically just tells him enough of the truth that he kind of gets this thing. And then in the second season, which the very first season we see in the first season, I think, actually, you actually get to see later on in the second season, is the head priest, Ferdinand, blue hair guy, blue hair, blue robes, and sort of like that. I think he also has the same eye color as mine, like a yellowish, and he gives her a drink, which is supposed to put her to sleep, and she has like this magical item crown tiara circlet thing. It's like gold, and there's like red stone, and goes right around here, and you find out it's a mind linking device transmission thingy. So because she has all these weird ideas and it's having a big effect on the world, he's trying to see like is there any malicious intent. Finds out no. Finds out that she used to live in another world, and at the very end of the season, he leaves off by asking this head of the guard dude that was there to witness everything. He's also the one that picked out the guards that were supposed to guard her from the fucking Trombe while they fought it. One was a decent person, talked nicely to her, wasn't rude, even answered some questions for her that she didn't ask. And then the other was an asshole that you wanted to punch